Whether on the go or at the table, get lost in a conversation about everything coffee with your host, Eric Ortiz.
Hey everyone, welcome to Everything Coffee, a podcast that delves into the relationship of coffee with a variety of people, from manufacturers, cafe owners, coffee roasters, social media personalities, and so much more. This podcast takes on a deep conversation about everything coffee. And today I am joined by Mathew Canniff, owner and inventor of Hive Roaster. Mathew's career has spanned into the service management industry, including being a service manager with Loring Smart Roast. And with 7 years of coffee world knowledge, Mathew, soon after leaving Loring and no longer having access to that delicious high-end coffee, he designed a prototype that would eventually evolve into the Hive Roaster. Keeping up with orders during a pandemic to now struggling to keep up with demand, we talk about everything coffee with Mathew and his amazing Hive Roaster. You can visit Mathew's product page at www.hiveroaster.com and on Instagram at Hive Roaster. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mathew Canniff. Mathew, how are you, sir?
Excellent. Yourself?
I'm good. Thank you.
Awesome.
Welcome to Everything Coffee. I'm so happy that we got you on the show, and I've just been fascinated because I see you on Instagram quite a bit, and you do a lot of live postings coming on Instagram Live quite a bit. And I just enjoy seeing what you got going on with your product, which is pretty interesting for a lot of individuals that have ever wanted to consider going into being kind of like a home roaster. This is kind of like a gateway drug.
It is indeed.
Tell me a little bit about yourself, and then we'll talk a little bit about the product itself.
Well, basically, I was a mechanic for years and years. I worked mainly on heavy equipment, and then kind of accidentally got into the coffee roasting industry. And the reason is because of the electrical complexity of the modern roasters are real similar to the way that a lot of heavy equipment operates. And so I was able to, repair it, even though I didn't know anything about coffee. Once there, I started getting into the specialty coffee because we'd have customers, bring a big old bag of coffee over and roast it at Loring. And it was just incredible because I'd never tasted anything like it.
Sure.
And then I got hooked on it. And so it's been on ever since.
And all of your background, though, you had 7 years of coffee knowledge. Is it all from Loring, or is it from other companies?
No, I worked for a company called Dolce Neve. Dolce Neve is the North Bay Area, or really the Bay Area's premier espresso repair and sales company. There's a couple other ones, but these guys really dominate. And Jay, the owner, is an old friend of mine. I've known him about 30 years. And like he says, he waited a couple of years for me to get to learn the coffee industry by working at Loring before he recruited me to work for him. And so that was kind of cool. And so I worked with him, managed his business, just, doing repair and sales of espresso machines. And my son went to work for us. So I kind of know from the brewing end and also the roasting end both.
Oh, wow. So that is pretty extensive in terms of how much you've done in the coffee world. From what age would you say that you've been kind of just interested? Because we always talk about where we got involved in coffee and how our passion kind of evolved. But where did your passion for coffee evolve?
Well, honestly, like I tell people, I used to know exactly which gas station I liked coffee from the best, right? And I know it sounds really terrible in this coffee industry, but I've always been really into coffee. I just didn't know anything about specialty coffee. So I drank a lot and I was really dependent on it and I really loved it, but I had no idea about it. I just literally knew, I like this brand from this gas station the best. And then once I got into, and I've been hitting coffee since I was probably 17. I think it was Denny's that really got it going, late nights after the show or whatever, going to Denny's and sitting around drinking with people. And
Sure.
That's really what got me started on it. But as far as specialty, once I started with Loring, it really, and it was a counterculture experience that really got me. We had counterculture in and they roasted a bag, and it was the most incredible smell I've ever smelled, most incredible flavor. And it was just, at that point, I was totally hooked on the whole thing.
I can imagine. I always am fascinated by people's stories when they come on and talk about their roots in coffee. And that's the first where I get it, where it's kind of gas station coffee, but everyone has their own thing. For me, it was growing up with my grandma and getting Folgers inside the house at the time, right, when Percolator was there. And it was kind of just an experience for us. But it sounds like coffee's kind of become a big root for you in terms of your career, your passion for everything. And it's all kind of been the basis of your service industry experience working in different companies. How much has the tinkering kind of gone into it? Because every time I talk to someone that roasts, Mathew, I always find one common thing for all these roasters is that they're all tinkerers. They love to tinker. They're all hands-on. Is that exactly who describes you?
Yeah. I mean, I built the machines that built the Hive. So yeah, it's a constant evolution. The first 6 hives that I built took me about 3 months. And now I can build multiple in a day. And it's just because I'm constantly dealing with my process, creating new machinery, tinkering with the machines that I have. As far as roasting goes, I mean, once I developed the Hive, it's been pretty much, the Hive will do any type of roast that you want. Sure. So you can do really fast roast or really long roast, whatever you want. And so you can really it's a huge rabbit hole to go down to just to learn all the different ways to roast every type of coffee. And then on top of it, I'm constantly trying to upgrade my machinery. So yeah, I pretty much tinker nonstop,
I'm just for the audience that's listening to this and that might not know what the Hive Roaster is, give them a background to what the Hive Roaster is, Mathew.
Okay, so basically it's a handheld. It looks just like a regular pan like you'd see on the stove, except it's got a round lid. When you take off the lid on the inside, it has a shape similar to a bundt cake pan. So you've got a hole in the center of it. The idea to that is that the heat from the flame comes up from inside, comes up inside the roaster. And so it gets the inside of the roaster about 100 degrees hotter than the beans at all times, which is really the definition of roasting. Whereas like cooking coffee in a frying pan, you're not really roasting it. You're just thermally conducting heat through the base of the pan into the beans. And that's why the results kind of vary with that. Whereas, you need to have a really hot environment for the beans. That's why, like hot air roasters work okay. But anyways, and so then as that heat travels up, it exits through a little hole in the top of the roaster. And at that point, the air is really, really hot, and it actually burns away the carbon and the smoke. And so as a result, you're able to roast in your home kitchen without that real acrid smell like you normally get out of a coffee roaster.
Sure.
It does away with the majority of the carbon smell. So you just wind up smelling, it really kind of smells like you're baking something, like maybe like a cake or cookies or something like that.
So it must be smelling good at your house at all the time.
It smells awesome. And when people come over, they don't know that they don't recognize it as a coffee smell, because it's not that real thick smell like people are used to. It's the sensory operation of it is it's amazing, because you can hear it, you can see it, you can smell it. You really become kind of one with it. And so I think that's part of why people get so hooked on it. Because the reality of it is that today we have a push button world, right? People want an app and they want to be able to start a process and just stare at their phone and make it happen. And this is very physical. You're actually agitating a pan over flame. Every part of it is up to you to get it right. And it really grabs people and they become really addicted to it, or people don't want to deal with it at all because they're just like, I'm not going to touch that thing for 12 minutes. No way. And so it's kind of, it definitely narrows down the crowd of people who buy it. But once you get into it, I mean, I'm always amazed because I'll have customers that I haven't talked to for like 2 years. And they'll be like, this is the only coffee I drink. I've roasted hundreds of pounds through your machine. And it's just, and I love it. I mean, that's really, I'm in it because I want to do this as a career. Sure. But the result of it is the connections that I've made with people and how many people I've helped to roast really good coffee. That's been the big win for me. It's built, especially during the pandemic, because while everybody's locked in,
sure,
I'm communicating with people all over the world because I sell internationally. So I'll sell to anybody, anywhere. And so I wound up, for whatever reason, a bunch of guys in the Philippines were kind of my first adopters. And I got to know them real well online and chatting with them on different apps and stuff. And, doing video roasting with them and stuff. And it's been really cool because I've met, I haven't met them in person. I've only met two customers in person, but I've dealt with hundreds of people and it's been super awesome.
I can imagine. How is it possible for someone, and this might be something that you might not know, Mathew, but I look at this product and I'm thinking someone that wants to get into the coffee world, small batch pieces of coffee here, because we're not talking about a large device. I mean, this is handheld, but have you seen individuals that purchase this then eventually spawn off into a business?
about 10 that I know of.
Oh, wow.
And I've also got a couple customers that this is their entire income. And granted, these are people I think maybe living at home still, but they're literally only roasting in the hive and only selling at farmers markets. And they roast pretty much like all day, every day, and then sell on the weekends, because it basically takes you 12 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes to get 6 ounces of coffee, which is not very fast compared to a commercial roaster where you're doing, 180 pounds in the same amount of time. But the thing that's really cool about it is that my customers wind up learning how to roast so much better than other people who are just using like an automated roaster, because you absolutely have to understand the process. Otherwise, you aren't going to be successful. I mean, you can get lucky. A lot of people get really lucky their first few roasts, but there's no programming, you know what I mean? Like there's no, it's just really, and so as a result, they wind up really successful roasters. So I've got people that have now gone to work as professional roasters, like roasting in regular roasteries with the knowledge that they learned.
Sure.
They've taken coffee from a Hive Roaster to their interview to give to the interview person to show them. And then I've had multiple people start out doing this and then upgrade. And they're using a Bullet, and then now they've got a San Franciscan, and then now they've got a Dietrich. You know what I mean? And it's really awesome to see the progress. I mean, it's amazing.
I'm curious, when you said right now that someone needs to kind of understand the process, because this is not it's not a forgiving machine, right? There's no automated system. It's a feel. How much of that feel is broadcasted from you to education in terms of like, you're selling the hive, you designed the hive, but your target audience, are they going to be individuals that are going to be looking for you for education, or is this something that they're just going to pick up on their own?
I'll say both. I'll say yes to both. If you get a regular commercial roaster, you have to adjust it to get it to run right? So you've got air control, you've got flame control, drum speed. Those are your basic controls. And so what the Hive does is it kind of gives you like a middle of the road adjustment on a commercial roaster. So if you put beans in there, put your heat on medium and agitate it for 12 minutes and you wait until it's done popping, you're going to come out with some pretty good coffee no matter what. So it's actually a lot more forgiving than you'd think. It doesn't tend to burn. If you let it pop, it won't be under roasted. And so it gives how do I explain it? It's a really, really easy way to roast a batch of coffee with absolutely no knowledge. Now, once you get to that point, now you can say, okay, well, that was really, really good with this Guatemalan coffee, but when I do the Ethiopian, I feel like I'm missing something. So then they start researching, what do I need to do? Well, maybe I need to speed it up. Maybe I need more heat up front or whatever it is. And so, really just kind of by doing it yourself, you can come up with a lot of knowledge. Now, I've done a ton, like I think over 100 live roast videos, which some reason every time I make a video, it looks like it's made in about 1998. I don't really know why that is, but the quality is god awful. It's me rambling on. There's no prep. There's no editing. However, if you can tolerate it, you can actually get some pretty good information. And I find people, they'll do like 6 or 7 of them. And then at that point, they've pretty much got it. And if you'll notice, like on the videos, a lot of times it'll say like, fast roast Guatemalan or slow roast Guatemalan or fast Ethiopian, whatever it is. And a lot of times too, I'll do 2 in a row. So I'll do like a Guatemalan and an Ethiopian. And so it's a little repetitive, honestly, because coffee roasting is somewhat repetitive. You're doing the same thing over and over again. And so you can just watch any given video and get some pretty good information. And I don't really know, like, as far as like a ratio of how many people roasting with my product actually watch the videos and are successful because of it, I don't really know. I know I've got people that have never watched any of them and they're doing really well at it.
I will say I've never been, so my coffee journey has been mostly just drinking coffee products. But it's never gotten into that realm for me, Matthew, of wanting to roast my coffee. But having seen your videos over some time, and I do kind of watch these things, and I kind of pay attention to them. It's the closest, I'll be honest with you, the closest I'll ever get to want to roasting coffee, because it's not something that's kind of built into me. I'm not a tinkerer. I'm not a very hands-on kind of guy, because I get a little nervous about like, I don't want to mess this up. I don't want to screw this up. But when I see this product, I kind of look at myself and saying, I could do that, and it looks interesting for me to kind of, being able to brew specific coffees, tinkering a little bit and find out, hey, maybe I'm not so bad at this, but it's also kind of like a way for me to evolve in the coffee world, right? Because drinking, buying products, testing out machines, I mean, features are features, but actually developing the roast that you're going to be drinking later on, that there's some kind of just like, I want to say, the last time I had a guest on, Gary, he was a roaster for My Friend's Coffee. And the way we kind of describe how he roasts, it's very passionate,
right?
Like poetry. And I think that when you start talking about roasting your own coffee and using a device, it kind of gets to the intimate level of the drink itself. It gets to the root, almost to the origin site of coffee, because you understand it and get personal with it. And I think that's what it feels like when you're actually roasting, because it is kind of like you're holding it on your hand. And you're actually feeling the movement of the beans inside.
You're fully invested, and that's to me is the big difference. It's like, you've now got, sweat and labor, and maybe your arm's a little sore, and your nose is filled with this smell at the end of it. I mean, you've done something. You've actually accomplished a task, as opposed to just, pushing a button and waiting for a while and being like, oh, I guess it turned out good, and it may be great, but there's something about that, actually putting a little bit of yourself into it that, in my opinion, makes it, it's pretty incredible. And it's odd because, I follow a lot of Instagram coffee accounts, and I see so many people so focused on burrs and how different burrs affect the flavor of coffee. And I get it. I mean, being a professional selling, grinders and having to sell burrs and clean them and replace them and all that stuff, I totally get the difference. But the amount of difference that you get from one brand of burr to the next compared to roasting coffee properly or not is like just huge. You know what I mean? And so it gives a person a real way to have really complete control over the brew. And so, like, for me, I don't get into the gear end of it. I have a pretty crappy electric grinder, and I have a French press, and I grind coarse, and I don't weigh anything. And then that's how I brew my coffee every day. And I got into doing it that way because it was a real easy control for me, because I can do it the same every time. And that way I know if there's a change in the flavor, it's because of the coffee, not because of my equipment. Whereas, when you're in a coffee shop, I used to help customers, dial in a coffee or whatever, and then all of a sudden it's different. Now you've got to, change your machinery a different way, and it's this constant balance to figure out what is making this coffee taste like this. I just take all that out of the equation. So I know it's how I roasted it is where I'm getting the flavor.
It's a scientific process. You have a controlled method, and that's just kind of where it goes into. I remember seeing a post just a little bit ago from you saying, "Oh, we're stocked up," and then when I've gone to your website, it seems like instantaneously it's just all sold out again. How good has that been for you, and how hard has it been to keep up with so much demand, Matthew?
Well, the reality of it is that, I did this basically full time for about 2.5, almost 3 years. And I was able to do that because of the glory of mortgage forbearance. And so during the pandemic, I basically quit paying rent. And so my wife was still working. She works at a church. I still worked doing other stuff too. Like I was still fixing roasters, commercial roasters, but mainly I was just selling hives as an income. Well, then once the pandemic stopped, and it's not really stopped, but once the forbearance stopped, that right about that time, I wound up doing really well. It was about almost this time last year. And I wound up selling a full pallet over to Europe, which was awesome. So I have a distributor there. And then Prometheus did a best coffee gifts of 2022 or 2021. That really promoted me really well. And so I did really well until about February. And then I suddenly couldn't get the probes anymore. And the supplier I was using them was out of Canada, buying them in China. And so they went from costing $15 to about $75 for a comparable model. And I couldn't do it. So then I was only able to make the basic hives, and that pretty well, cut down my sales, because everybody's, well, I'll just wait for the probe. Well, they're not buying. And so it cut my volume down, and I'm like, I got to get a job. So I went back to work for the espresso guy, just fixing machines. So I was just in the back being a mechanic, and then saw this job for the winery company, the wine equipment company open up. And so I got that. Well, then 3 days after I got that job, I was at my daughter's graduation, and my phone started going crazy. And this guy, Tyler Colson, Tyler Colson had posted a reel, and it wound up with about 5 million views all in all. And so my website just exploded. I went from an average of like, say, 30 to 50 views a day to like 500 a day over months. It just never really stopped. Well, the problem is that I have a full-time job at a very intensive job where I'm trying to manage a service company for an international, manufacturing company, and it's really tiring. And so the reality of it is I haven't hardly sold anything since that happened. I've just been doing this really part-time, when I had the opportunity. So part of the reason why it sells out so quick is because I'm not putting very many up for sale. And so my son just moved back into town. He's now going to work with me on it. And so we're ramping up to do as best of production as I possibly can. So my guess is that in the near future, the lack of availability is going to go away. And I think that I'll probably get caught up. But, I sold quite a few, like a few days ago, this week, and then just got buried with emails with people like, I missed it.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, and everything's like sold out. And I remember you posting just a few days ago saying, "Oh, get it while it's there." And the people did.
It was a half an hour. I sold out in a half an hour.
Oh, that is impressive. That is impressive. I am curious when it comes down to your business, Mathew. It seems like it does incredibly well. I know it's labor intensive. What's the future for Hive Roaster? Is this something that you want to start getting back into and producing a lot more, or is this something where you just want to keep very small, almost mythical, you might say?
We're going for roaster world domination, man. The reality of it is I've sold more roasters than Loring in the same time period.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? However, theirs cost about 1,000 times more than me. So, so even as many as I've sold, just the simple math will let you know that the income isn't really all that high when you consider the overhead. So really the thing that's always kept me back is just, I don't have the volume that I need. And had I gone into the, Google advertising and doing ads and all that, I could have maybe pushed it forward faster. The problem is I don't have the income to do it. So I just basically thought, I'm just going to do this with no advertising, only word of mouth, doing kind of like what I'm doing with you today. And really I owe it all to Prometheus. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not.
Absolutely.
So basically his brother, is the sales rep for La Marzocco in California. And so I know him from working at the espresso company, and he's a really super nice guy, Shad. And so me and my wife went down and we did went down and we did the Coffee Fest in LA in 2019, which was a dead show. But we went, and Shad showed up because he was there as a company rep, and he recognized me. He's like, "Hey, Matt, what are you doing?" And I said, "I'm doing this." And he's like, "Oh, you should hook up with my brother Prometheus. He'll maybe promote you." So I did. And sure enough, and that's pretty much like the majority of my sales for the first 2 years was because of that.
Yeah, and he has a background in roasting himself, Prometheus.
Absolutely, yeah.
So he probably looked at this and said, I do remember seeing a video, and it was a favorable review. Obviously, there was, he always has some caveats here and there, but for the most part, it really seemed like he enjoyed it. It's like I said at the very beginning of the show, this is a gateway drug because it's going to get you involved in the roasting business, or at least the roasting hobby, and then before you know it, you're going to want to do more.
Yeah.
And
it works incredibly well. I mean, it's really a good roaster. I know it sounds.
Yeah. No, go ahead. Go ahead, Mathew.
Oh, I was just saying, I'm not a very good self-promoter, and so I'm not very good at saying, "Hey, this is really awesome, I made it," or "I'm really good at this." I'm just not that guy. And so, and maybe I should be better. I don't know. But no, it's absolutely incredible. The people that use it especially if I can get commercial people to use it, they're blown away because they're like, "How are you doing this and getting the same results as this Loring or this Probat, in your hand?" And it's just, it's because I just and what I did is I just copied the roast environment.
Sure.
Like I just said, it needs to have the same roast environment as the inside of a Loring, and so it does.
What's the evolution for Hive Roaster itself? Having seen multiple iterations, what else do you feel are you improving on based off just new science, new understanding of roast and coffees, maybe even different fermentation processes? Does that play into like how you design the next evolution?
I've tried, like, once I was able to manufacture these myself, I figured out how to be able to change all the parameters around on it and like increase sizes of the holes, decrease the height, do all these different things. And I tried every possible combination that I could, thinking that I'm going to hit something better than what I really originally came up with. And I've yet to really be able to improve on the actual thermodynamics of the machine. So everything that I'm trying to do to improve it is really to improve the user experience, because I realize that the reason why people don't buy it is because they look at it and they're like, I don't want to hold that thing for 15 minutes. I don't want to shake it. And that's really I think the reason why it doesn't sell more. And so my goal is to come up with a roaster that's not handheld, that can be, plugged in, that gives the same quality of coffee, but in a more favorable user experience. We're also now making our own thermocouples.
Oh, wow.
So I'm not going to be dependent on, Chinese imports for that. I can go ahead and just manufacture them here myself and take full control of that. And then the next step is going to be to get some sort of like an application or interface so that it's more modern, so because that really seems to appeal to people. Like, they really want to be able to, see the progress on their phone or on their iPad or whatever. And so I'm trying to play to that market as well. But like right now, I'm just selling the basic hives, and people are really snapping them up, and I'm really happy about that, because the probe and the interface to the computer and the display and all that stuff, it's all neat, but I'm just using other people's stuff for it. It's not like I'm creating anything. I'm just using what's already out there.
Sure. And
my goal is to really create, to really be like, hey, this is 100% my thing. I made this, because that's what I get off on. It's super cool.
And I'm curious, when it comes down to the business side of things for you, Mathew, you've mentioned already that this is something you're doing kind of part-time right now. You have your full 9 to 5, but how difficult has this truly been for you? What is the most, like, just, I wasn't expecting that aspect of a business ownership for you so far?
The hardest thing for me has been to keep faith, and to just say, you know what, this is going to work. I'm going to be able to do this, because there's a lot of reasons not to, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of reasons to not go into business yourself, and to be able to say, oh man, this is never going to work out. I'm never going to be able to sell the volume I need. I'm never going to, nobody's going to buy it. That's been my biggest challenge, is just to remain faithful to the idea and to the thing that I've created. And it's been a real challenge. And it's kind of funny, because like when I was telling you about how that guy posted that video with all those hits, and had I not gone to work for somebody else, I probably could have financially made it, because I had so much volume right then, potential.
Wow.
But yet in my mind, I'd already decided, screw it, this isn't working. I've got to get a job. I can't deal with the financial stress. Because I mean, we live in a very expensive area. I still have a daughter at home, but we have real expenses. You know what I mean? We have a mortgage, and it's like that stuff has to get paid one way or the other.
Life costs.
Faith doesn't pay the bills. You know what I mean? But it was weird, because I realized at the end of it, had I just powered through and somehow, I don't know, borrowed money or whatever, I would have had this huge hit that probably could have carried me through the summer into the holidays. But instead, I went a safer route, and I went to work for somebody else, and I'm collecting a paycheck, and it's fine. I mean, it all worked out, and so I'm not complaining about it. But having faith in stuff has really been the hardest thing. As far as like running the business, I'm not very good at I wound up owing money for sales tax that I had to pay back, and I've just made some errors by not doing things. And, I was saying, well, I've never advertised like on Google. Part of the reason why I can't advertise on Google, because when I went to set up my account, I somehow screwed it up. And then now I just can't have a Google account selling this product.
Oh no.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And I'm sure it's repairable, but I don't really know how. And so there's been stuff like that had I really planned it out and been a better, business person, I probably could have done a better job on that end, and which may have resulted in a better running business. I don't really know, but go ahead.
I was going to say, I think you got yourself a hit no matter what, Mathew. This product, from what I'm looking at and from what people have said, and I think it's just a matter of, like you said, I think it's the advertising that gets out, and it sells itself because it really looks like a solid piece of machinery. And more importantly, it's just fun. And for anyone that's truly into that journey of coffee, this is the next step. Unless you come in from the world of roasting, then this is not your next step, obviously. But if you're coming in from a world like myself, where I'm a drinker, I like different varietals and I have all this fancy gear, but roasting has never been fascinating for me. But now this is something that I look at and I'm like, you know what, it could be. And I'm scared because I'm laughing when I say it, but I tend to get hooked up onto these gateway machine drugs. And where I'm going to be like, Matthew, if I buy one, I am going to blame you when I end up spending way too much money on green coffee and trying to do it too often. And I'm honestly worried about actually getting too involved and to actually wanting to do this. But I would venture to say that there's a lot of people out there that are really tempted. And I would say, go visit the website, stay in contact with you, because once these products drop, they go fast, number one. But it's also kind of important to kind of follow you, because passion kind of bleeds and you kind of get hooked from other people's passion. So when I hear you talk on Instagram, you're so passionate. You say it's rambling, and I'm like, no, that's not rambling. That's just someone that is really into what they're doing, and it shows. So I can say that you already got yourself a hit, regardless of having a 9-to-5 job now. It's still a pretty cool hit.
I just looked at that as a way to finance. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
I could have gone out and probably gotten a loan and come up with the same end result of not having to worry about my bank account, but I didn't want the debt. And so this was a way for me to kind of self-finance. So it's a lot of work. I do it, I'm basically working 12 hours a day, but at the end of it, I'm going to win. You know what I mean? And I think you're absolutely correct. I think that, there's a certain ratio, you know what I mean? As many people hear about, for a long time, I had almost exactly the same amount of sales as Instagram followers.
Oh, wow.
And right now I almost tripled my Instagram followers in the last 3 months. And I haven't sold that. I haven't sold that volume. So I think I've got a lot of potential out there.
You definitely got potential.
But tell me, so you've been following me for quite a while, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. I've been following you when it wasn't as blown up, because it was during the pandemic when I started following you, and I would see all my pop-ups show up like, oh, Hive Roaster is broadcasting live, and I would join in from time to time.
Yeah, I thought I saw you.
Yeah, and I've just been fascinated by the idea, because, like I said, it's just never been something that I've ever been interested in, because it's just kind of scary to me. It's foreign to me. But as I kind of age, get a little older, understand coffee a lot more, it's in the realm of where, I don't want to stay stagnant either. I want to keep on learning and educating myself. And I think that the best way to kind of do that is kind of approaching it with a machine like this and actually getting involved and doing it small time, because you don't want to go big and get yourself a big drum roaster right away. Even these home-friendly machines.
Yeah, and you won't learn as fast either. That's the thing. You get yourself a commercial machine or a drum machine or any of that stuff, or like a popcorn maker or whatever, and you're now locked into the parameters that machine will give you. You can't go outside of the box.
This is true.
You know what I mean? Like, I've made a roasted coffee in 3 minutes because I was able to just, with a torch, because I was able to just blow so much heat into it. You know what I mean? Like, and you aren't going to do that with anything. There's not really, I've done roast at 20 minutes just to try to see like what actually happens. What are the outside boundaries of coffee? Because when you start looking at I'm sure you've seen some of the videos of like the people in Yemen or in Ethiopia when they prepare coffee.
Sure.
It's a totally different trip. They do it completely different. But yet a lot of times when you look at it when they look at how they pour the coffee, you can see the color of it and the texture, and you're like, that's going to be awesome cup. Even though it's like, they're roasting it, they're beating it with a rock when it's hot. They're pouring boiling water on it and they're boiling it, but yet it comes out and I'm looking at it. I'm like, I want to drink that.
I will say, when I look at your product on the website right now, I can already smell that coffee being roasted inside the house. And I'm
it's
just I'm fascinated.
It's incredible.
Matthew, I am so thrilled that you came on the show. Where can people find the Hive Roaster?
Just hiveroaster.com. Or, I have a Facebook, which is @Hive Roaster. If you're in Canada, I have a company called Green Bean Co. that's a distributor. If you're in Europe, anywhere other than England, you can buy through a place called Crema Shop EU. And they actually have more inventory and more options than I do right now. I also sell here in America through a company called Cafe Creole, which is a coffee hunter project, which is a pretty cool story in itself. You might look at those guys and think about interviewing that guy because he's got a really cool story.
Awesome.
And then also Slack Bag Coffee out of the Bay Area. A guy named Dan Streetman. He has his own coffee brand, and he also sells green coffee, and he sells the Hive Roaster. So those are basically, and then every once in a while I try to get to a show, but with having a full-time job, I don't know how much that's going to go down, but I have been to a couple shows where I can sell. And so that's basically it. And then,
and Instagram, don't forget Instagram, Hive Roaster.
And I actually saw one for sale on Craigslist one time. So you might check Craigslist. It was like, I have these two goals. Like, I'm like, when I see one on Craigslist and then when I see one in a thrift store, I will know that I've actually created a real product.
Yeah, you've made it.
So I keep looking at the thrift stores, and I haven't seen one yet, but I have seen one on Craigslist. Oh, and actually, when they sell on the secondary market, they sell for more than I sell them for.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Matthew, it was a pleasure having you on, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And let's get you a Hive Roaster. So when we're done here, just send me your address and I'll send one out
Matthew,
to you today.
Thank you so much, sir. And don't forget to subscribe to and get lost in the conversation about Everything Coffee podcast on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. Visit Everything Coffee at everythingcoffee.podbean.com and on Instagram, everything.coffee.podcast. Thank you for joining us and supporting local businesses in your city and around the world.
Thanks, brother.